what I would suggest for you is get to know people, whether it's me or someone else. Find people who you would want to work with, talk to them, get to know them. What do you look for in a deal? Really start to understand who they are and then show up.
Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing all over North America, really. And today, as you can see, we're in a different setting, different place. We're not in Montreal in studio. We're in St. Louis, Missouri, and it is a pleasure and honor to have Mr. John Casmon from Casmon Capital Group here today with me as a guest. How are you?
Excellent. We're here at RubeCon 2024. So exciting day, great events so far. We've got another couple of days of great activities.
Yeah, exactly. And so how kind of this came about, I was actually on your show about 2-3 months ago, and we were scheduled for you to come on. Life happened, things happened, and when I saw that you were going to be speaking here at the conference, I thought that it was a wonderful opportunity to actually be able to share your story, because you're doing some wonderful things in multifamily space here in the U.S. So how in the world did you get started in real estate investing?
Oh, great question. Everyone's origin story is a little different from mine. It may feel a little familiar, but in short, I was working in corporate America. So I worked for many companies, but in particular, I was working for General Motors.
Okay.
This is back in 2007 through 2011, and the company went through bankruptcy. So I was there at headquarters, watching my boss and my boss's boss on TV, and it was a lot of anxiety. So at that time, I realized that my corporate job wasn't really stable. It wasn't really predictable. And I needed a plan B. And I needed that plan B to potentially be plan A. So real estate was a thing that came to mind. I had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad some years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to learn and just divulge everything I could about real estate investing. It took me about 2 to 3 years before I actually moved to Chicago and made my first investment.
Okay.
We bought a 2-unit building, house hacked it, lived in one unit, rented out the other unit. And that really gave me the foundation necessary to get going. From there, bought a 3-unit, bought an 8-unit, got a mentor, learned about syndication, raising capital. The next deal we did was 192 units in San Antonio, Texas. And from there, we were off to the races.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'd love to go back on obviously the earlier days, and a lot of people do start with a duplex.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we started with my wife. We actually bought a condo, we bought a duplex, and then we scale from there. And so you said 2, 4, 8, and then 130?
238, but 248 is
248.
okay,
Okay,
a little easier.
But
Yes,
but
238, then 192. Yeah.
okay, so I want to understand, like, how do you make that jump to the 192? Because most people out there closing in 8 units, they're fully capable of, especially if they've done a transaction or two. Now, to close over 150 units in one shot, that takes more capital, more experience, and it's a whole other ball game when it comes to negotiation, to structuring, to capital raising. And you've really developed an expertise now in that segment. And I'd love to take a little bit of time so we can share with the audience, like, what advice would you give to people who've closed some smaller multifamily and now they want to make the jump and go into more serious syndication?
Well, I think the first thing is you want to make sure you're clear on what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it. So for me, it wasn't that I was looking for a 150 plus unit. I really only wanted a 12 or 20 unit building. That was my goal, right? I had done the 8 unit. I wanted to try to double from there. And I wanted to bring in a capital partner to make that a little bit easier for us. In going through my education and analyzing a ton of deals and talking to a lot of investors, what became clear is that I was really playing in a almost no man's land zone, because the deals I were doing, I still needed to provide great cash flow and upside appreciation potential for investors. But now that I'm giving away half of the profits, or sometimes half the profits, those deals didn't look quite as good. So the scale of those 100 and plus unit deals is what made it really attractive. And the real secret was I got out of my own way. I stopped trying to do it my way, and I started to talk to other people, and I figured out how can I help them. And I came across a guy actually at a conference. My wife met him. We went to dinner with him. And about 7 months later, I was launching my podcast. I had him on as a guest, and he told me about this deal that he was working on. And I said, that sounds fantastic. I would love to work on something like that. Would you be interested in partnering?
Okay.
And we ended up partnering together on that deal for that 192 units. So they took the lead. They were the lead operator.
Mhm.
They got the deal under contract. They had a nice track record, but they were fairly new into the space as well. This was their first large deal as well. So we were able to pair up, work together, and that allowed us to grow and scale. So my insight for everyone is, one, don't focus so much on the number of units. Okay, those are vanity metrics. What I want you to focus on is, what are you trying to accomplish and how can you accomplish that? For me, I wanted to scale and grow, but I also wanted to introduce real estate investing to the people closest to me. I have family members, I have friends, I have folks who saw what we were doing with the 2 unit, the 3 unit,
Yeah.
the 8 unit, the flips. And I would tell them, get into real estate, here's how to do it. And they would look at me and say, yeah, that sounds great, man. Not really my thing,
Yeah.
though, but I'd love to, but I just don't want to.
It's great, but
Yeah, it's great, but right, either they didn't want to do the work,
Mhm.
they didn't want to do the education, they were scared that they would lose money. And the truth of the matter is, most of them were in the same position I was in when I was at GM. You know, you're working for a company. At any moment, you could get let go. And then how are you going to provide for your family? So it wasn't the real estate for me. It was, how do you take control of over your financial future?
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get people to understand. So syndication actually gave me an avenue to bring those folks into real estate so they can take care of their own families.
yeah, and there's so much to unpack in what you just shared. And one of the important part that I heard you say is really that when you started on that 190 unit deal, you partnered up with another operator to be on the GP, because as you said at the beginning, it's not about the numbers, it's not about how many doors, it's not about how much you're going to get out of it. It's about starting to build a track record so you can do this over and over and over again. But it starts with that first big, large deal. And until you get there and you do it, well, you don't have anything to show that justifies you bringing in that capital. So I totally understand you. And as a piece of advice for those who are listening, this is a normal way to start. And at the beginning, there is kind of the incentive of, or no, I just want to keep it all for me. And I want to keep the equity. I want to make some fees and stuff like that. But really, it doesn't work that way.
Well, here's the deal. If you want to do it yourself, I completely understand that mindset, but I think it's also important for you to realize that you're being selfish. I mean, if you think about it in any other world, right? If you found a great stock, or you had a great lawyer or attorney, someone who is really helping you in different ways, and it's crushing it, it's making your life better, and you didn't tell anybody else about this, you didn't share this with anyone else, you let other people suffer in silence. They're telling you their problems, and you just ignore the fact that you've got a solution in your pocket.
Yeah.
You're being selfish. And that's the thing that really is the difference for me when it comes to syndication. I think a lot of times people think of it as, oh, you're just looking to raise capital, right, from other people. And certainly there are folks out there who have that mentality. I really believe in service.
Mhm.
Who can you help and serve? My friends, my family, people closest to me. Those are the people I look to bring into our deals first.
Yeah.
So it's not just going out there and raising capital from anybody. I want to help those people closest to me.
Mhm.
And if you believe in what you're doing to that extent, you're not going to be selfish. You're going to try to serve those people. You're going to try to protect those people. You're going to make sure you're being very cautious on the kind of deals you're doing. And that's going to make it a better environment. Now, it's not to say that you absolve them from risk, right? Every investment has risk. And that's why we want to teach people. We want to educate them. But it also pushes me to be a better and better investor too.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to just take a random flyer on a deal. We're going to make sure we understand those risks. It's going to help me be sharper and help me be better. So I think all those things are really, really important when it comes to real estate investing, because it forces you to be a better investor.
Yeah. And I want to go back on the capital raising side, what you mentioned of like some individuals just saying, oh, you just want to raise capital and stuff. But, well, I would say, one, what's wrong with that in the sense that I'm not doing it from a beggar point of view. I am extending to you the opportunity to come alongside me and join in on the adventure and also make some returns. But sometimes there's this perception of like, oh, all you want to do is the money. And the capital raising is just a portion of the entire acquisition process. But sometimes there's so much emphasis that's put on that. And I still can't figure out for what reason.
And think about the flip side of that. It's like an investor saying, oh, you just want to make money.
Yeah.
You just want to grow your money. You just want to grow your wealth and income.
I thought that was the point. Am I missing something?
Of course, that's the point. We're all looking to place our capital in areas where it's going to grow. So if you have an opportunity where you're able to do that, and you have people who, again, like, and trust, they know, like, and trust you, wouldn't you rather them invest with you so now you both can win? as opposed to them taking it to a competitor or some other random person who has no clue
Mhm.
about what they're doing or has no care for your friend, your family. Would you like your mom to park her money with some shady investor? You know, I mean, she could be putting that money with you when you know you're going to bend over backwards to make sure you protect her.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of people don't really understand the feeling that we go through as investors about the fiduciary responsibility. And it's conversations that we've had with my wife a lot. She's a tax lawyer, so she does understand some of those things a little bit, a lot actually. And we started just with our own capital, and eventually, just like everybody else, we tapped out. And then it's like, okay, well, if we want to keep growing, we have to bring other people in. And it's scary, and I've shared it with a number of people thinking like, oh yeah, but now you're raising capital and you're bringing people in and stuff. It's like, yeah, and guess what, I still kind of go through the same scary emotion. It's just that now we're better at dealing with it, and we've got more systems and more due diligence and a better process. Can you kind of describe how it was like for you when you started to bring in other people's money, especially when they're close relatives? Like,
Yeah.
there's that pressure.
Let me give you a real example, right? The very first investor we had was my brother-in-law, and my wife was involved in the business more at the time. And, you know, even going to present and talk to, you know, her brother, we had a lot of conversations about it. And the reason it was important is when we were having these conversations initially, he expressed an interest in investing. When I told him what we were doing and why we were doing it and how investors could benefit, I saw his eyes light up. And when we sat down and talked about it more, what I realized it wasn't about me. So I'm speaking here at this event about building a personal brand. And one of the biggest misnomers people have is they look at everything from their own perspective, right? You're raising capital. Sure. But with any business, with any service, with any product, you're building it or creating it to take care or address a challenge someone else had.
Yeah.
And in his case, he was paying a lot in taxes. Yes, he wanted the cash flow. Yes, he wanted the appreciation and diversification. But the thing that was eating him up was this is someone who did everything right, went to school, medical school, got all the degrees he needed, making good money, paying a huge amount in taxes. And you're sitting there and you're scratching your head and saying, I've done everything. I make good money. Why do I not have more? So when I talked to him about some of the benefits of real estate investing, specifically with commercial real estate, specifically with bonus depreciation and cost segregations and those different strategies, his eyes lit up. So when we talked to him about investing and really start to put a deal in front of him, that's when we knew we had something there, because he actually came back to me. You know, we had a conversation. I was out hunting for deals, couldn't find one that worked. And he called me about maybe 4 or 5 months later and said, hey, man, where are these deals you said you're going to have? Like, I still got this tax problem.
Yeah.
Like, whether you
Help
find
me
a deal
out.
or not, I still have this tax problem.
Yeah.
And I got excited because I thought you could help me. But if
Yeah.
you can't help me,
Yeah.
then I'm going to have to find someone else who can. And nothing hurts more than letting the people down who are closest to you,
Mhm.
right? So when that fear and that trepidation you talk about, it comes up when you're analyzing deals. Absolutely. Every single deal, I get a slight hesitation. Ooh, did I miss something? But that's why you got to trust your process, trust your systems.
Mhm.
Always get feedback from others. I have a whole team of people who look at all the analysis, third-party vendors or contractors or property management companies, mentors, advisors, other partners, LP investors. We have literally hundreds of people looking at these deals and giving feedback and poking and prodding and looking for maybe something that is either missed or, hey, what happens if this happens?
Yeah.
Or what do you do here? So when you get that much feedback, you can feel more confident. We've also underwritten hundreds and hundreds of deals, right?
That you
We
passed
have
on.
passed on. Exactly.
Yeah.
We've passed on hundreds of deals before
Yeah.
you buy one, right?
Mhm.
The rule of thumb is you basically look at 100 deals to do one. So when you go through all of that, you look at the sales record, you look at what's sold, you look at how deals are operating, you can trust the process, and that builds the confidence. It doesn't erase the anxiety that comes from wanting to make sure you've done everything the right way, but you can move forward even though you're a little bit, nervous.
Yeah. Always so much to think about. And so, what happened after this deal? Where are you at now? What are you doing? And you said you've also started a podcast a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we've had our show for some time now.
Mhm.
Multifamily Insights. I think we're going on 6 or 7 years, something like that.
Wow.
Up to 600 episodes or close to 600 episodes. It's been a great journey, and this thing was great for us because that podcast, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. Literally, guest number two. Number two is the guy I was talking about. So the second
Yeah.
podcast interview I've done was a guy I ended up partnering with for 192 units.
There you go.
And that's why podcasting is so powerful and such a great treasure to connect and build these relationships. Today, we have invested in over $125 million worth of apartments. We have exited 6 deals. We've got another 6 or so deals that we own and manage today. We like growing parts of the Midwest and the Southeast region,
Mhm.
and we're excited about growth. You know, obviously the market will always continue to change and the economy shifts a little bit. But for us, it's about making sure that we are being both cautious and conservative with our approach while still being aggressive with our actions. So we want to look for deals, we want to analyze deals, we want to talk to investors, we want to talk to brokers, but we want to really make sure that we're taking our time and doing our proper due diligence before moving forward on an opportunity.
Yeah. And so, do you have some deals that you're currently looking at and evaluating?
We're always looking at deals and evaluating. Just put in the best and final offer right before I got out here. So we're waiting to hear back on that. I hope to hear by Monday.
Mhm.
Just left a meeting with my partners on a deal we have in Columbus. They've got another deal they're looking at. So we're working through the initial conversations there. I have a phone call on a deal in Louisville shortly after we wrap here on a property that I toured last week and may end up partnering on a deal like this. So we're always looking, and the benefit for us is we have 2 ways we operate. One, we go and find our own deals, and that's kind of our primary way of looking at opportunities. But because we've been fortunate enough to build up some great relationships with great operators, there's only so many deals we can look at, right? And I only have so many hours in the day. But if I know someone, I've got a chance to really understand how they underwrite deals, the way they think about the business, the way they treat their people.
Yeah.
We may be open to partnering with those people, right?
Mhm.
We want to see who can find it. And the great thing there is they've already scoured these deals, right? Just like I've looked at 100 to find one, they've looked at 100 to find one. So
They're just sending you the
collectively,
one.
They're sending me the one. And
Yeah.
then I'm basically looking at the one of like maybe 20.
Yeah.
So if you think about almost literally 2,000 deals, we're evaluating, the 20
Yeah.
that made the cut to pick maybe the one that we
Mhm.
end up doing. So we don't do a lot of deals. We end up doing maybe a deal a quarter on our best year. Typically, it's more 2 to 3 deals a year, but
Yeah.
we're looking at, I think that will ramp up this year. But that gives us a great flexibility to really cherry pick the kind of opportunities we want to move forward with.
And so, right now, if someone is listening and wants to send you an opportunity, like, what does your ideal
Don't
deal
bother.
look like? Don't
Yeah.
bother you.
Well, and the reason I say don't bother, I'm not trying to be mean or,
Yeah.
or short. What I say don't bother is we don't start with the opportunity. We
Mhm.
start with the people.
Yeah.
So if I don't know you, we're not going to start looking at a deal. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna get to know each other because I've got to make sure we are right for each other. And we don't partner with very many people, period. Even people I've known for a long time.
Yeah.
So we start by really focusing on our own deals. If you're interested in working with us, I'm open to that conversation. But if you have a deal and you want me to work with you, that's probably just not going to happen. What I would suggest for you is get to know people, whether it's me or someone else. Find people who you would want to work with. Talk to them. Get to know them. What do you look for in a deal? Really start to understand who they are and then show up. A lot of this is everyone's great the first time you meet them. It's like dating, right? You go on one date. Any one of us could be a rock star. But, you go on about 3 or 4 dates and you start to realize who that person really is,
And
right?
once you see the state of their house, when you
Yeah.
step in their car,
Yeah.
once you all that, then you start to uncover a little bit more.
How do they treat others? All of those things, right?
Exactly. I guess I should have asked my question differently. Is like, what does your ideal property look
Sure.
like instead of deal? You said you're looking at the Midwest. Now are you looking at for, like, let's say 250 unit plus, or what is that like?
Yeah, so we can be somewhat flexible in the kind of deal. Typically, what we're looking for is 100 to say 250 units in the Midwest. Think of a B-class area, growing markets in the Midwest. So Louisville, Columbus, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, where I'm based. Those are markets we like. When I say B-class, everyone defines that a little differently. I like to think about an average or median household income of 55K and up.
Hmm.
So that gives us a great opportunity to find quality residents who are looking to be in our communities, stay there, have the income, great workforce housing. So that's kind of what we're looking for. I say value add, meaning we are looking to go in, buy a property that's already cash flowing,
Hmm.
and we want to come with a business plan that's going to really maximize the cash flow potential of that property. That's what we're typically looking for. Usually, mid 80s to 90s construction up to, more recent construction.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm trying to think what else. That's pretty much it. So we like, it's a broad box. If it's in Cincinnati, we can be a little more flexible on the deal.
Because you
But
have a team in place
we're
locally.
local.
And
We're local.
yeah.
I've got contractors. We have folks we've worked with over the years on different projects. So we have just a big network there, and it's just easier to make adjustments. But in other markets, that size really is important. And so many people don't realize this. But owning a larger property is actually easier than owning a smaller property. My 104 unit.
Can you explain why?
Absolutely. My 104 unit is so much easier to manage than the 28 unit I
Mhm.
had. The reason is this: when you have scale, you have the revenue, you have the capital to run it like a real business. When you have a property that does at least $1 million in revenue, you can probably afford on-site management. So that's
Exactly.
somebody whose full-time job
Mhm.
is to oversee that one property. Okay, really important. You probably have maintenance people who are, if not full-time, at least part-time to that property. You have third-party management, or at least people dedicated
Mhm.
to that property. And because of that, you now are truly an executive overseeing this. We call it an asset manager. But the truth is, you're the owner, and you can act like an owner just like you owned any other business or franchise. You don't have to be in the business, right? You're running the business. You're looking at the numbers. You're looking at the operations. And it's not just the rental income numbers or the expenses. It's looking at traffic. It's looking at the reports. It's understanding what's really happening at this property. What adjustments do I need to make? What's happening in the market? You're playing up here. I'm not dealing with tenants or residents.
No.
I'm not dealing with, hey, unit 13B
Yeah, needs
has
a bathroom
toilet leak.
change. Or,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't
No.
get those phone calls. I don't know. I'm not dealing with that.
No.
Now I will look and say, hey, we've had a strange number or a wide matter of fact, literally, I'm just going through my numbers. We had a fairly high amount of plumbing costs over the last month. So sat down, hey, what's going on with the plumbing here? Why is it so high? Okay,
Yeah.
we had 4 water heaters that went out. We had this. Okay. So you want to be proactive, and obviously you want to get in front of some of these things. But on the same note, when you have that many units, every time a water heater goes out, like, you don't want to get that phone call because it's 100 plus units.
Mhm.
Something's always happening at that property, but you want to empower your team and make sure you got the right people. So for those folks who are control freaks and you want to control your business, this is very important. You might say, well, I want to make sure I have full control over that. Like, I don't want to wait to that point. That's why you hire the right people. That's why I'm focused on, who do I have in this chair? Are they the right people? Or do they understand the right way to make decisions? Have I empowered them? Have I created standard operating procedures for them to follow? Do they understand how to make decisions, when to call me, when to get tripped up? And that's what our phone calls are about. Making sure that they're the right people. I'll correct them if and when I need to correct them. I'm going to the property. I'm going to tour. I'm going to walk it with them. But ultimately, I have to make the decision, do I have the right manager in place? And if not, that's the change I need to make.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily that I want people calling me when the water heater goes out.
No, you don't
It's
even
that
want to hear about it.
I don't even
and,
ever
and
want to
you
know about it.
shouldn't.
No.
And I love how you described the real difference between managing a property and operating an asset, I guess, or operating a property and managing an asset, depending on how you
Yeah.
see it. But you are now at the level where you are an asset manager. And as you said, you're looking at the numbers, you're managing the team, but you are not the one doing the hands-on work. The thing is, as real estate investors, depending on how we start, you started with a duplex.
Yeah.
You just had 2 units and you probably did everything yourself,
Everything.
including the plumbing calls. And most of us start like this. It's rare that people start by their first acquisition being a 200 unit where there's a full professional team. And for all those real estate investors that are out there, just remember that as you grow and scale your business, you need to take more and more steps back because you've been able to delegate, you've been able to build a team. It's the same thing for people who still do their bookkeeping. At some point, you need to put someone in charge of that, someone who's able to take the account statements and go through it and reconciliate and everything going on. And so that transition isn't easy. And as you said, for those control freaks, it's a big step.
It's a big step. And I think, too, your point is it's tough because I get it. You may not trust other people to run it, right? We hear these horror stories all the time about things happening. And I'm not telling you just to blindly trust people. What I'm saying is you want to verify these things, right? You want to trust but verify. You want to make sure you have controls. And then you can slowly put in the right systems and processes to ensure you have that. But you won't grow and scale. I mean, there's only so many phone calls you can take in a day. So that's
Or
the
that
thing
you
you've
want
got to
to.
look at. Yeah. Well, and the truth of the matter is most people, when I go back to, really where I realized my model wasn't working when at the 2 unit, the 3 unit, I had a turn. There was one of my units in the 3 unit became vacant. I got a quote to paint. And the quote was like $800 or something. I was like, y'all crazy. I ain't paying $800 to paint
I'm
this.
going to do it myself.
I'll do it myself. So it was Saturday afternoon. I'm working a full-time job, by the way. And I have a 3-month-old baby. So, hey, babe, I gotta paint this unit today.
Take the roller and go start with the living room.
Oh, my friend, you jumped to step 6. No, step 1. We got to go to Home Depot.
Yeah.
I got to go get all the supplies and materials. Step 2. You got to
choose the color first.
You got to choose the color, right? So, I picked the same color. Step 2, I've got to fill in all the holes from the nails and everything. Step 3, I got to sand the walls down. Step 4, I got to wash them, right? Now I got to prime them. I got to wait for the primer to dry. I got to do a second coat of primer. Now we got to do the first coat of paint. I'm waiting for the paint to dry. I'm doing a second coat of paint. And guess what? They had a really dark wall, so I wanted to make sure the paint really adhered and was good. While I'm literally waiting and watching paint dry. I'm watching paint dry. There's no furniture, so I'm sitting on the hardwood floor. My wife calls me, and she's got our 3-month-old son, and they're at the park, and it's a Saturday in June.
Are you coming home soon?
And I realized I'm in this hot apartment watching paint dry, when the only reason I got into real estate was because I wanted to have financial freedom and time freedom and flexibility, and I'm spending my weekend watching paint dry. And that's when I realized, there's probably more to this business than just numbers. And that's why it's so important to have clarity of what you actually want and not just chase, because you can very easily sign up for a part-time job thinking you're an investor.
Most people do. I started like that too. We bought a 5 unit and I did half of the renovation myself. I spent about 8 months doing that. And now thinking back, it was a terrible use of my time. Do I regret doing it? No, because it was part of the journey and it pushed me on the next property to say I am completely hands off. And then I went from there. But I think most of us really do start that way. And I'm eager to meet an investor who started with small properties, who didn't take the hammer or the paintbrush at some point.
Yeah, at some point. And I love what you said, though. It's part of the journey. And I think that is so critical because the mindset of what you're doing and why you're doing it, it's critical. Because when you have those moments that, make you want to quit, make you want to cry, maybe you are crying, you have to understand it's just a step in the journey. And it may feel painful while you're in it. I remember we were doing a flip project. And I had this contractor. He was actually a partner. So he was a developer. He had 10 different projects going on. And he just got overwhelmed. And everything came crashing down. I got left with the bag on our project. And I'm painting the ceiling at, I don't know, it's like 1 or 2 in the morning. And I hear water just start to gush. And I'm like,
what?
That doesn't sound good.
Uh-oh.
I'm in this house by myself. Like, why am I hearing this? And I go upstairs and I realize that the drywall guys, when they were putting the drywall up, they accidentally hit the copper where the plumbing was. And because we had never turned the water back on, we didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was painting and I had to use the bathroom. So I went upstairs, turned the water on so I could use it, flush the toilet, go, come back down, I'm painting, and then I'm hearing the water. And I'm like, I don't think it's supposed to be dripping like that. Then I realized it. So all the paint work I had done, I had to stop. We had to redo it. We had to redo the drywall, redo the plumbing. Yeah. I damn near cried and broke down. It's 1 in the morning. I'm already tired.
That was one screw.
Listen, well, because we had run out of our whole construction budget.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was like, well, I can't do that, but I can do this. I can do this, and I'll do it after work. And it was a meltdown, right? But I look back, and there are a lot of lessons learned there. But the important thing here is it's part of the journey.
Yes.
And you may not recognize that if you're in the moment, and it may feel terrible, but these are great lessons to learn.
Yeah.
And if you can learn from them, make the adjustments, you'll be better off for it. And that's just part of it. As an investor, every investor has these stories. Some are willing to share, some are not. But the truth of the matter is these moments will make you a better, smarter, savvier investor.
And all those steps, I don't even want to call them mistakes because they're not mistakes. They will make you a better investor in the long run, as difficult as it is while you're going through it, as you said. Do you share some of this on your podcast?
Not as much on my story. I mean, I normally bring on guys like yourself and hear what you're going through, but I'll interject from time to time. And I think it's important just to understand that, most successful investors you see, if you ask them, if you can get them on the right day, they'll tell you they got a story just like this, if not 10 times worse, right? And the reason it's important is to understand that you're not alone and not to be so fearful of that mistake. And if you're not as fearful of that mistake, well, then you're more confident to go bigger, right? Because if you can learn from the mistakes, one of the first steps is to not make the mistakes. Recognize, well, why did I make a mistake? Well, in that case, I hired the wrong contractor, right? It was on me. I picked the wrong partner. I got excited about trying to scale. I was doing this deal here. I wanted to flip. I had never flipped before. So I'm like, well, I'll just partner with this guy who does all the flipping and I'll let him run it. Yeah. But strategy was right. I just picked the wrong guy. It's that simple. I picked the wrong guy.
It happens.
The red flags were there. I ignored them all. And that's what happened. So
I think all of us have been there. Tell us again, what's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, the show's called Multifamily Insights. It's available anywhere you listen to podcasts. We have stories like this with our guests. The great thing is, if you are looking to invest in multifamily, this show will cover topics from finding deals, analyzing deals, raising capital, building a personal brand, mindset, which I think is so critical. Yeah. Again, the things we're just talking about, having the mindset of, I'm going to network, I'm going to join a mastermind, I'm going to get a coach, I'm going to put myself in a position where I can grow and scale and be of an abundance mindset. That's so critical to grow. But all of those things are available. We talk about them a lot on the show, bringing in some amazing guests. And like I said, we're about 600 episodes in, so I'm really excited to continue growing the show.
For sure. And as you said, like we are not alone going through this. So if you're actually painting right now and it's 2 a.m. and you're like, why did John say this? I'm about to start to cry. We have all gone through it. You will achieve bigger things. And we deeply wish it to you. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. And I should have reminded you at the beginning, please share it with a friend who could benefit from this conversation. John has a lot to teach to others. You have a lot to learn. So share it with a friend, leave us a review, send us some feedback, send us some questions. I'm also in the process of planning my next episodes. If there are particular topics you'd like to hear about, please let me know and reach out, and I'll go get some experts to answer some of those questions. On this note, thank you very much, John. It's been a real pleasure to have you on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. And as usual, keep researching your market. Go out there and make some offers. Thank you.